The hospital entrance is all fluorescent light and squeaking floors and the specific kind of silence that isn't quiet at all. I walk in still wearing my wrinkled suit, tie loosened somewhere on the highway, and I find the ICU wing by following the signs because no one offered to help and I didn't ask. The hallway smells like disinfectant and something underneath it that I don't want to name. I see Damon before he sees me. He's standing outside a set of double doors with his arms crossed and his wedding boutonniere still pinned to his lapel, slightly wilted now, and when he turns and registers my face, his expression does something quick and controlled. "Noah," he says. "Where is he?" I ask. "Stable," Damon says. "Resting." "I want to see him," I say. Damon shifts, a small sideways movement that puts him more squarely in front of the door. He doesn't need stress right now. I look at him. "Move, Damon." "I'm serious," he says. "The doctors said limited visitors. Family only." "I am family," I say. "You know what I mean," he says, and his voice stays even in a way that means he practiced this on the drive over. "Say it clearly," I tell him. "If you have something to say it where I can hear it." He doesn't. Celine appears from the chairs along the wall. She's changed out of her wedding dress, efficient, I think, that she had something to change into, and she crosses to Damon's side with an expression of practiced concern. Her eyes are completely dry. "This isn't the time," she says to me. "He's my stepfather," I say. "He's exhausted," she says. "He needs quiet." "Then you two should probably leave," I say. "Since you spent his son's wedding mocking me from the altar." Damon's jaw tightens. "That was a joke." "A room of 200 people laughed at me at your instruction," I say. "What's the part that was funny?"
"Noah."
Veronica's voice comes from my left. I turn. She's walked up from somewhere down the hall, still in her champagne dress, heels clicking even now, a leather folder under one arm like she's come from a board meeting instead of a hospital waiting room. Her face is composed. Her posture is composed. Everything about Veronica is always composed, which is either impressive or terrifying depending on how well you know her. I know her well enough. "Come sit down," she says. "I want to see Grant," I say. "In a moment," she says. "Come sit." I follow her because the alternative is standing in a hallway arguing with Damon's wilted boutonniere, and I want to know what's in the folder. She sits. I don't. She opens the folder on the chair beside her and turns it toward me. A document. Several pages, stapled. Dense language in small font with highlighted lines near the bottom. "What is this?" I ask. "A formality," she says. "Read me the formality," I say. She folds her hands. "With Grant's health being uncertain, it makes sense to clarify the company's ownership structure. This waiver outlines your acknowledgement that your current role at Callaway Group was consultative rather than equity-bearing, and that you relinquish any informal claim to shares in the interest of family stability." I stare at the document. Then I almost laugh. It comes up my throat and I push it back down because laughing in a hospital ICU wing at 11 at night feels like a line even I shouldn't cross. "Family peace," I say. "It's cleaner for everyone," Veronica says. "You're asking me to sign away any claim to my stepfather's company," I say, "while he's unconscious in the next room. At his son's wedding reception. The same night you had my work email revoked." "The email was a procedural decision," she says. "It was timed," I say. "During the ceremony, while I was standing there." Veronica's expression doesn't shift. "Sign it tonight, and this doesn't become complicated." "It's already complicated," I say. "You made it complicated. Don't hand me a pen and call it resolution." I push the folder back toward her. Damon appears at the edge of my vision. "It protects the company," he says. "It protects you," I say. "Same thing," he says. I turn away from both of them and walk to the nurse's station. "Grant Callaway," I say to the woman behind the desk. "I'm his stepson. Noah Callaway. Can I see him?" She checks the screen. "We have you listed as immediate family," she says. "He's in Bay 4. 2 minutes, please, he needs rest." I feel Damon watching me cross the floor. I push through the door. Grant looks small. That's the first thing. He's always carried himself as someone who fills a room, broad-shouldered, deliberate in how he moves. the kind of man who makes decisions and doesn't revisit them. Lying under the hospital lights with wires on his chest and an oxygen sensor on his finger, he looks like a version of himself that's been turned down in volume. I sit in the chair beside the bed. His eyes open when I pull the chair closer. "Noah," he says, and his voice is thin. "I'm here," I say. He looks at me for a long moment. Something moves across his face that I can't fully read. Not quite guilt, not quite relief. Something that sits between them. "They out there?" he asks. "Yes," I say. He closes his eyes briefly. "Veronica show you a paper?" "She did," I say. "Don't sign it," he says. I keep my voice level. "I wasn't going to." He nods, slow, like the movement costs him. His hand shifts on the blanket, and I put mine over it without deciding to, and he grips it, not weakly. He holds on like he's trying to say something that words aren't doing correctly. "Grant," I say. "What happened tonight? And I don't mean your heart." He opens his mouth. The bay door opens behind me. 2 minutes, the nurse says gently. He really does need rest. Grant's grip tightens once, then releases. I stand. I look at him one more time, at his face under these lights, and I think about all the conversations we almost had over 10 years that got rerouted by other people in the room. "I'll be back tomorrow," I say. He nods. I turn and walk out, and the nurse, her badge says Nina, falls into step beside me for just a moment, and she says nothing until we're a few feet from the bay door, and then she speaks very quietly without looking directly at me. "Mr. Calloway asked for something before he lost consciousness in the ambulance," she says. I slow my pace. "What?" She opens the pocket of her scrubs and draws out a small sealed envelope, folded once. She presses it into my hand with the practiced subtlety of someone who has done careful things in difficult situations before.
Omar meets me that afternoon in a coffee shop with a laptop and an expression of someone who finds numbers more reliable than people. He pulls up Calloway Group's public filings and 3 years of records Ms. Ortega had on file. "Here," he says, turning the screen. "These loan instruments. 18 months ago, 2 significant loans were issued internally. They're tied to Damon Calloway's subsidiary." "He has a subsidiary?" I ask. "Technically under Calloway Group's umbrella," Omar says, "but structured to operate separately. The loans look like capital investment. They're not. They're transfers with repayment terms that were never enforced." "He's been moving money," I say. "Repositioning it," Omar says carefully, "in ways that would be hard to challenge if the main company's ownership transferred cleanly." I sit back. "If Grant's shares went to Veronica and Damon in one clean document, these loans become untouchable," Omar says. "Yes." I think about Veronica's folder. The highlighted lines. Her voice saying it's cleaner for everyone. My phone buzzes on the table. A number I don't have saved. I answer. "Mr. Calloway?" A court clerk's voice. "I'm calling to notify you that a harassment complaint has been filed against you by a Miss Celine Hartley Calloway. You'll receive the formal notice by email within the hour." I close my eyes. "Thank you," I say and hang up. Omar looks at me. "Problem?" "My stepbrother's wife just filed a harassment complaint against me," I say. Omar closes his laptop slowly. "What did you do?" "I showed up to a wedding I was invited to," I say. "And then I visited my stepfather in the hospital." He's quiet for a moment. "They're trying to make you reactive," he says. "A harassment claim gets you defensive. Defensive people make mistakes." My phone lights up again. The court notice. Formal. My name. Celine's name. A date 3 weeks out. I stare at the screen. And I think about Grant's hand gripping mine in the hospital. The weight of it. The way he held on like he was trying to say something important without words. He ordered that test for a reason. He wanted me to have it. I put my phone face down on the table and look at Omar. "What do I need to gather?" I ask. "Everything," he says. "Starting with what's oldest." "Good," I say. I know where to start. I stopped trying to catch her. Instead I started watching. There is a difference. Catching is desperate. Watching is patient. And patience was the only thing I had left that hadn't been borrowed from a version of myself I no longer fully recognized. The name appeared 3 days in a row. I was not looking for it. I was making dinner when her phone lit up on the counter beside the cutting board. The notification vanished in 2 seconds, but not before I saw it. 1 letter. M. She crossed the kitchen, checked the screen, then slid the phone face down and said, "What are we eating?" I said, "Pasta." She said, "Good." And that was everything. 2 seconds. One letter. The entire axis of my attention permanently shifted. The next evening she took a call in the bathroom. The door wasn't fully closed. I wasn't standing at it, I was in the hallway putting clean towels in the linen closet 3 feet away. Her voice was low enough to be private but not low enough to disappear. I heard, I know that. Then, not right now, just not right now. Then a long pause. When she came out, she was smiling at her phone like it was something warm in her hands. She looked up, saw me, and the smile adjusted into something else. Vivian, she said. She hadn't said anything. I hadn't asked. She offered it anyway, which told me everything. 3 nights later, she showered after dinner. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter. It buzzed once. Twice. I looked from across the room. I told myself I wouldn't cross to it. I was already moving. I looked at the screen. I miss you. Tonight was everything. He doesn't deserve you. I read it once. I read it again. I read it a third time, slowly, the way you read something when you are trying to locate the version of it that doesn't destroy you. There was no version. I stood very still. Not shock, not rage. Something colder. The kind of cold that comes when a thing you suspected finally stops being a suspicion and becomes a fact, and your body understands that nothing from this moment forward will be arranged the same way. My hands were completely still. I photographed the screen. Sent it to myself. Set her phone back in the exact position. Same angle, same distance from the counter edge. I crossed to the sink and stood there until the water in the shower shut off. When she came into the kitchen in her robe, hair damp, she picked up her phone and checked it. Her face didn't change. She had read whatever she needed to read and buried it somewhere I wasn't allowed. She said, "Are you okay? You look pale." I said, "Tired." She said, "Early night then." I said, "Yeah." In bed, she fell asleep in 12 minutes. I lay beside her and thought about my father. He told me once, I was maybe 16, sullen about something I cannot remember anymore. "Aaron, any man can endure something. That's not the question. The question is what you refuse to accept. That's where your worth lives." I had written it off as fatherly overstatement at the time, the kind of thing you file under things you'll understand later. I was understanding it now. I was lying in the dark beside a woman who had let another man tell her the person next to her didn't deserve her. I was memorizing the sound of her breathing like it was information I would need to survive something. I was done enduring. I was not yet ready to refuse. But I was closer. The next morning, I drove to Dean's auto shop. He was underneath a truck when I walked in, boots visible from the garage door. I said, "Dean?" He rolled out on the slider, squinted at me and said, "You look terrible." I said, "I need a favor." He sat up and pulled a rag from his back pocket. "How bad?" I said, "I need you to find out who Marcus Hale is." He looked at me for a long second. He didn't ask how I knew the name. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask if I was sure. Dean has known me since we were 11, which means he knows the difference between me asking a casual question and me asking the kind that has already cost me something. He said, "Give me 24 hours. I said, "Thank you." He said, "Don't thank me yet." I said, "I'm not thanking you for finding something. I'm thanking you for not asking questions." He stood, looked at me for another beat and said, "You eating?" I said, "No." He said, "Eat something." That was all. I drove to the barn from there. The lights were still strung. I had not touched anything since that first night. The wood floors still smelled like the linseed oil and cedar Dad had been particular about. The iron fixtures he'd sourced from an estate sale 3 counties over. His handwriting was on a beam in the back corner, a measurement, a calculation, something practical. I never covered it. I was never going to cover it. I stood where I had stood that first night with my phone raised and the lights glowing and hope still intact above me. I said it quietly to no one and to him at once. I built this for someone who doesn't exist. My voice didn't break. That surprised me. The lights hung patient and warm, the same as always. Honest like he'd said. A room lit right. Everything ready for a day that was beginning to feel like someone else's story. I turned off the lights and locked the door. Then I drove home to wait. Dean called me at 6:12. "I found him," he said. I was in the parking lot outside the grocery store, engine running, hands on the wheel. "Tell me." "Marcus Hale. 31. Guitarist. Plays local sets, records session work, disappears for months at a time. He dated Colette in college." I closed my eyes. Dean kept going. "He left her 5 years ago. No warning from what I could piece together. Moved to Nashville for a tour. Came back to the city 4 months ago. And the last 3 months?" Pause. I asked around. People have seen them together. Cafe on Fifth. A bar on Morton. A hotel lounge downtown. More than once. I let that sit between us. Are you sure? I asked. Yeah. You sound angry. I am angry. For me or at me? Both, he said. For you because this is rotten. At you because I think you've known enough for a while. I know. What are you going to do? I looked through the windshield at people pushing carts under fading light. I'm going home. Want me there? No. You sure? No. But I'm going anyway. Call me if it gets bad. It already is. Yeah, he said softly. I know. When I got home, Colette was at the counter slicing lemons. Hey, she said. You're late. I need you to sit down. She looked at me, then at my face, and the knife stopped moving. Aaron, what happened? Sit. She sat across from me at the kitchen table. I took out my phone. Then I placed a printed copy of Naomi's photo beside it. She looked at the screenshot first. Then the photo. Then me. Her face lost all color. For a second I thought she might lie. Say it was old. Say it meant nothing. Instead she whispered, How much do you know? Enough. Tears filled her eyes immediately. I didn't want you to find out like this. How did you want me to find out? She shook her head. Please don't do that. Do what? Talk like you're already gone. Who is he? I asked. She stared at the photo. Marcus. I know his name. I loved him once, she said. He left. He came back. And you went with him. She covered her mouth. I thought I was over it. And me? I love you. You keep saying that like it changes anything. It doesn't. No. It doesn't. She looked down at the screenshot. That text was stupid. Was it wrong? She didn't answer. Naomi saw you holding his hand. I know. You know because you did it. I know because I remember it. Silence sat between us. Then she said, I was scared. Of what? Of making the wrong choice. I stood up. You already made it, I said. She stood too. That's not what I mean. What do you mean? She was crying openly now. I just need 2 years. I thought I'd misheard her. What? 2 years, she said. To finish things with him. To get closure. Then I'll be fully yours. I promise. I stared at her. 8 weeks from the wedding. 2 years from my life. Say something, she whispered. 2 years. I know how it sounds. Do you? Please listen. I'm listening. I don't want to lose you. But you want time with him. It's not like that. What is it like? It's unfinished. I laughed once without humor. And what am I? Storage? A safe place to wait while you decide if I am enough. No. She reached for me. Aaron, that's not fair. Fair? I'm being honest now. After the lies. She grabbed my arm. Marcus means nothing. This is about closure, not love. I removed her hand gently. You asked for 2 years. That tells me everything I need to know about where I stand. Aaron, please. No. She stared at me. You can't walk out over this, she said. Over this. I made a mistake. You built a second relationship inside our first one and asked me to wait while you finished deciding. I said I choose you. After 2 years. You are twisting this. No. I'm finally hearing it straight. I picked up the screenshot and the photo. Where are you going? She asked. Out. When are you coming back? Not tonight. She followed me to the door. We can fix it. I opened it. You should have wanted to fix it before I had to prove I knew. Then I left. My brother Dean opened the door before I knocked. He took one look at me and stepped aside. Spare rooms made up. I sat on the bed. He stayed in the doorway. You want to talk? He asked. She asked for 2 years. He blinked. What? 2 years to finish things with him. Get closure. Then she'd be fully mine. Dean let out one breath. Jesus. Yeah. You leaving her? Yes. He nodded. Good. After he went to bed, I lay awake in the spare room and saw the barn as clearly as if I were standing in it. The beams. The lights. The floor Dad and I sanded twice because he said a place built for vows should never feel unfinished. I had spent days asking myself whether the wedding would still happen there. Lying in Dean's dark house, I understood that was the wrong question. The venue was never hers to ruin. If I walked away from it too, I would be handing her damage to the only promise my father finished there. My father gave his last strength to that room. I gave mine too. It was built from work, memory, and love that meant something even if the woman I chose did not. I sat up, looked into the dark and said it out loud so I could hear the shape of my life changing. I'm going to use the venue. Then I said the rest. But Colette will not be the bride. I moved out in 3 days. Day 1 I packed clothes. Day 2 books and tools. Day 3, everything that had my name on it and nothing that didn't. Colette stood in the hallway while I carried boxes past her. You're really doing this, she said. Yes. You don't have to rush. I'm not rushing. You are. This is dramatic. I set a box down. You asked for 2 years. I said that in panic. You said it clearly. She pressed her lips together. You're going to regret this. I already regret enough. Dean helped me load the truck. He didn't speak while she watched from the doorway. When the last box was in, she said, "Call me when you calm down." I closed the door instead. Dean's spare room smelled like motor oil and laundry detergent. Temporary. I needed temporary. I found a studio near my office within a week. 1 room, 1 window, 1 narrow closet. Quiet. I signed the lease without hesitation. I didn't post anything online. No statements. No explanations. Instead, I opened the wedding folder on my laptop. Caterer first. Hi, this is Aaron Whitmore. I need to cancel the August booking. Pause. I'm so sorry. Is everything all right? No. We'll refund what we can. Thank you. Click. Florist next. I won't be needing the arrangements. Oh. I had just finalized your peony order. I'm sorry. It happens, she said gently. Take care of yourself. Click. Each call felt like a small funeral. But with every cancellation my lungs felt clearer. The DJ didn't even ask questions. Happens all the time, man, he said. Better now than later. I almost laughed at that. Then I called Jackie Lamb, our event coordinator. Aaron, she answered brightly. I was meaning to follow up about the revised timeline. Revised timeline? Yes, for the postponement. What postponement? Silence. Aaron. Colette called me 2 weeks ago. She said you both were thinking about pushing the wedding back 6 months. 6 months. Not 2 years. But the same instinct. Buying time. No, I said carefully. We were not thinking about that. Oh my God, Jackie breathed. She said you were overwhelmed. I assumed you knew. I didn't. I'm so sorry. It's fine. It wasn't. She wanted to hold the date tentatively, Jackie continued, voice small now. I told her we could shift vendors if you both agreed. Did she sound unsure? Another pause. She sounded conflicted. Thank you, I said. After I hung up, I sat at my small kitchen counter and stared at the wall. 6 months. She was already rearranging my life without me. Already creating distance before I had evidence to justify it. I felt something shift again, not pain, not anger. Clarity. I drove to the barn that evening. The sun was low, cutting gold through the open doors. Dust moved in slow beams of light. I didn't turn the string lights on. I just sat on one of the folding chairs stacked against the wall. This was supposed to be it, I said out loud. My voice echoed softly. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring. Aaron. The wedding's off. Silence. Not shock. Not interruption. Just space. Are you all right? She asked finally. I will be. What happened? She wanted time. With someone else. Another silence. Heavier this time. Oh, sweetheart, she said. I'm not asking for advice. I know. I just needed you to hear it from me. The barn isn't going anywhere, she said. And neither are you. I swallowed. It feels like it's collapsing, I admitted. It's not, she said firmly. It's standing exactly where your father left it. Solid. So are you. I let that sit in me. Come for dinner this week, she added. No wedding talk. Okay. After I hung up, I leaned back in the chair and stared at the beams Dad rebuilt by hand. The structure wasn't cracked. The foundation wasn't shifting. Only the story I had placed inside it was wrong. My phone buzzed. Vivian. I almost didn't answer. Aaron, she said immediately, her voice thick. I'm so sorry. For what? For lying. For covering for her. I thought she'd stop. You knew. I knew she was seeing him. I didn't know how far. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to betray her, she said. But I've been betraying you. You chose your sister. I chose wrong. Silence hung between us. Marcus is already pulling away, she said quietly. He doesn't want anything serious. He never did. I felt nothing. She's losing you, Vivian continued. And she's losing him. I waited for the satisfaction. The vindication. The anger. Nothing came. I'm sorry, she whispered again. Take care of her, I said. You don't hate her? I don't know what I feel. After I ended the call, I sat in the barn until dusk turned everything blue. Colette was losing both men. The thought didn't comfort me. It didn't hurt either. That scared me more than anything. Pain meant I still cared in the way I used to. This was different. This was quiet. I stood, walked to the center of the floor, and imagined the room filled with people. Music, laughter, vows spoken honestly. The venue wasn't cursed. It wasn't ruined. It was waiting. Not for her. For something real. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't thinking about what I had lost. I was thinking about what I refused to accept. 3 weeks after I moved out, I was on a ladder replacing a warped board near the barn doors when I heard tires on gravel. I climbed down slowly. Colette stepped out of her car like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be there. She looked thinner. Her eyes were rimmed red, the kind of red that doesn't come from one bad night. Hi, she said. You shouldn't be here. I needed to see you. I set the hammer on the workbench. You've seen me. She flinched at that. Marcus left, she said. I waited. He's gone. Back to Nashville. Or Austin. I don't even know. Her voice cracked. He disappeared. I didn't move. He didn't even say goodbye, she whispered. I wiped my hands on a rag. Okay. That's all you're going to say? What do you want me to say? She stepped closer. I made the worst mistake of my life. The barn was quiet except for the wind pushing through the open doors. I thought I needed closure, she said. I thought I needed to know what would have happened if he stayed. But he's the same person he always was. He runs. And you don't. I didn't answer. I was scared, she continued. You were solid. You were forever. He was unfinished. I thought if I didn't figure it out, I'd always wonder. So you figured it out? Yes. Tears slid down her face. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I leaned against the workbench and folded my arms. What are you asking? Another chance. The words hung between us like smoke. I'll do anything, she rushed. Therapy. Counseling. I'll move wherever you want. I'll wait as long as you need. She broke. I don't want to lose you. I let her cry. I let her say everything. When she finally went quiet, I asked the only question that mattered. If Marcus hadn't left, if he had stayed and wanted you, would you be standing here right now? She froze. Her mouth opened slightly. Close. That hesitation was small. But it was everything. I nodded once. That's what I needed. It's not that simple, she whispered. It is. I chose you. After he didn't. She stepped forward, desperate. I'm choosing you now. No, I said gently. You're settling for me now. She recoiled. I don't hate you, I continued. I understand what you were chasing. You thought you lost something. You wanted to see if it still fit. It didn't, she said quickly. But you asked me to wait while you decided if I was enough. My voice stayed calm. And I am not a waiting room. She covered her face with her hands. You didn't lose me because of Marcus, I said. You lost me because you made me optional. She sobbed openly then, shoulders shaking. I wanted to comfort her. Habit is powerful. I didn't. After a minute, she wiped her eyes. So that's it. That's it. You're really done. Yes. She stood there for a long time looking around the barn. The beams. The lights. The floor we'd planned to dance on. I ruined this, she said quietly. No, I replied. You ruined us. This still stands. She nodded once, then walked back to her car. I didn't watch her drive away. Ray Davenport called an hour later. Aaron, he said, voice tight. What is going on? You'd have to be more specific. My daughter is devastated. She came here. She told me. She said you refused to even consider reconciliation. That's accurate. Aaron, people make mistakes. She didn't misplace her keys. He exhaled sharply. You're throwing away 2 years. She asked for 2 more with another man. That's not how she described it. That's exactly how she described it. Silence. You need to think about the bigger picture, Ray continued. Families, reputation, deposits, appearances. I felt something almost like amusement. Your daughter asked me to pause my life while she explored someone else. She was confused. She was decisive. Aaron? No, I said firmly. No amount of reputation management changes what that means. He went quiet. You're making this harder than it has to be. It's already as hard as it gets. When we hung up, I felt steady. Not victorious, just steady. Pastor Gene Holloway stopped by that afternoon. He walked the perimeter of the barn like he was inspecting scripture. Heard things changed, he said. They did. He nodded, hands clasped behind his back. Your father built this place with his hands. I know. He built it because he believed in things that last. I looked up at the rafters. You'll know what to do with it when the time is right, he added. That sounds like advice. It's not, he said gently. It's faith. He left without saying anything else. Later that evening, a woman in work boots and a dark green jacket stepped out of a truck near the fence line. You must be Aaron, she called. Elena Voss? She nodded. Landscape architect. We shook hands. I've looked over the plans, she said, scanning the property. The bones are good. They were my dad's. She walked slowly toward the barn doors and stopped just inside, looking up at the beams. Whoever restored this, she said quietly, understood reverence. I studied her profile. There was no casual admiration in her tone. No performance. Just recognition. He did, I said. She glanced at me. We'll make the grounds match it. It was professional. Brief. Unremarkable. But when she stepped back outside and looked at the barn one more time, she did it the same way I did. Like it mattered. And for the first time in weeks, something inside me didn't feel broken. It felt open. I was sanding down a rough patch on one of the barn doors when I heard gravel crunch behind me. I didn't turn right away. Hi, Colette said. I kept the sander running for another second, then switched it off. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise. You shouldn't be here, I said, still facing the door. I didn't know where else to go. I turned then. She looked smaller somehow. Thinner. Her eyes were swollen, rimmed red like she hadn't slept in days. What do you want, Colette? She swallowed. Marcus left. I waited. He just left. Packed up. Said he needed to figure things out. Her voice broke. No goodbye. No explanation. I leaned the sander on the workbench. I'm sorry he did that to you. She blinked at me. That's it. What else would you like me to say? She stepped closer, hands shaking. I made the worst mistake of my life. The wind moved through the open barn doors behind her. I thought I needed closure, she said. I thought if I didn't try, I'd always wonder. And now I know. Tears spilled down her cheeks. He was never going to stay. You would have. I folded my arms. You knew that before. I was scared of how stable you were, she said. You were forever. He was unfinished. I confused chaos with passion. I didn't interrupt. I chose wrong, she whispered. I chose wrong and I lost you. What are you asking me for? She looked up at me like I was the last thing holding her upright. Another chance. The word landed between us. I'll do anything, she rushed. Therapy. Counseling. I'll earn back your trust. I'll prove it. I stayed quiet. I love you, she said. I never stopped. I took a slow breath. Then I asked, if Marcus hadn't left, if he had stayed and wanted you, would you be standing here right now? She froze. Her lips parted. No sound came out. That pause was small, but it was honest. I nodded slowly. That's what I needed to know. It's not that simple, she whispered. It is. I'm choosing you now. After he didn't choose you. That's not fair. It's accurate. She grabbed my arm. Please don't do this. I gently removed her hand. I don't hate you. She stared at me through tears. I understand what you were chasing, I said. You thought you lost something. You wanted to see if it still fit. It didn't, she said quickly. But you asked me to wait while you decided if I was enough. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. And I am not a waiting room. She covered her mouth, sobbing. You didn't lose me because of Marcus, I continued. You lost me because you made me optional. Her shoulders shook. For a second I felt the old instinct, to comfort, to fix. I let it pass. So that's it, she asked finally. That's it. She looked around the barn. The beams. The light coming through the high windows. I ruined this, she said. No, I replied. You ruined us. This still stands. She nodded once and walked back to her car. I didn't follow. An hour later my phone rang. Ray Davenport. Aaron, he said, clipped and controlled. We need to talk. I don't think we do. My daughter is beside herself. She came here. She told me. You turned her away. She asked me to wait 2 years while she explored another man. That's not how she framed it. That's how she said it. He exhaled sharply. People make mistakes. She made choices. You're throwing away 2 years. She tried to buy 6 more months before I even found out, I said. Did you know that? Silence. You have to consider the bigger picture, he pressed. Family reputation. Deposits. The barn. The barn isn't a bargaining chip. You're being emotional. No, I said evenly. I'm being clear. Aaron? No amount of reputation management changes what it means that your daughter asked me to pause my life while she decided if I was enough. He didn't respond. I wish her well, I added. But this is over. I ended the call before he could try again. Pastor Gene Holloway arrived just before sunset. He walked through the barn slowly, hands clasped behind his back. I heard, he said. News travels. He nodded. Your father built this place with his hands. I know. He built it because he believed in things that last. I looked up at the beams we had sanded together. You'll know what to do with it when the time is right, he said. That sounds like advice. It's not, he replied gently. It's trust. He left without saying anything else. As I stepped outside, a truck pulled up near the fence line. A woman climbed out, dark hair tied back, boots dusty from work. You must be Aaron, she called. Elena Voss? She nodded and offered her hand. Landscape architect. We shook. I've reviewed the property plans, she said, scanning the grounds. The structure's strong. The land just needs intention. It was my father's project, I said. She walked into the barn and tilted her head back, studying the beams the way I always did. Whoever restored this, she said quietly, understood reverence. The word caught me off guard. He did, I said. She gave a small nod, not sentimental, just respectful. We'll make the outside worthy of the inside, she said. It was professional. Brief. But when she looked at the barn one more time before leaving, she looked at it like it mattered. The same way I did. And that stayed with me.